when you focus on values, then you're not so focused on how you think it has to happen. You become more flexible.
Hello, and welcome to the Mindset and Self-Mastery Show. I'm your host, Nick McGowan. Today on the show, we have Damon Cart. Damon, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm excited. As I told you, this is the first episode, a brand new office. So if people watch the video and I'm looking around, it's other stuff in the office. I'm excited that you're here, man. We were just shooting the breeze a bit before we got started, and I'm excited to get into things. So why don't you kick us off? Tell us what you do for a living, and what's one thing most people don't know about you that's maybe a little odd or bizarre?
Well, I teach NLP and I coach it as well. I do one-on-one coaching, and not just NLP. I focus on a specific model called the self-concept model. And it was a model that was taught to me by my mentor, Steve Andreas. He created it. And it is a model that models our identity, how we create our sense of self and how to transform that. Most people are not living the life that they would want to be living. And that's rooted in them not being the person they want to be. And we think that we have to go conquer mountains or, defeat dragons until we're worthy of that. And that's just not true. It has everything to do with your beliefs and how you organize that information into those beliefs and what, in fact, you believe about yourself. And most people don't believe they are the value that they're seeking. And as a result of that, they experience lower self-esteem, lower confidence, and overall just lack of fulfillment. And we can transform that in sometimes as simple as one hour session, just by transforming beliefs, restructuring that information. So instead of taking years of willpower and discipline and all of those things, it's really in how you think about it. And there's an exact organization to that. And once you understand it, then you can change it. And something about me that is, I don't know, I feel like I'm a pretty open book about things about myself. I don't know of anything that's I would call bizarre. I would say something that probably not a lot of people know about me, unless you really know me very well, is that I'm a rather emotional person. And that can be anything. That can be anger. That can be watching a movie and, feeling emotional because of it, because it's sad or it's a great love story or something like that. I tend to be very emotional, and the older I've gotten, the more comfortable I am with just being emotional and vulnerable in front of people. But I don't really show that in my videos and my persona online. It's just not. I don't think it's really relevant, and it's not that I'm ashamed of it. It's just I don't see the value in doing that. I'm a teacher, and for me, it's about getting the information out there.
I want to go down that path a little bit because I am emotional. And if you watched any videos, you can see some of the emotions come out. There are oftentimes I'm from Philly, so I'll just blame the Northeast. I'm like, it's because of Philly. Like, yeah. And that's what everybody thinks about Philly people anyway. They're crazy or they're loud. And it's like partially, but some of that's also generational trauma and they don't really know how to handle it. And it's interesting because also as we get older, like you can watch a commercial and you get over 40 and you start crying. And you're like, I don't know why. Yeah. Like, what the fuck was that? What a good 12-second clip of something. But it's interesting that you put that to the side when you make your videos, and it sounds really conscious. Like you're like, I'm not going to allow myself to be not vulnerable, but emotional because you don't want it to block the message. Is that about right?
I got a comment on one of my videos recently, and that one of the live streams I did was very academic, and I was like, "Well, like as opposed to what? Like, how do you?" Because you'll hear people throw this word around when it comes to NLP teachers. Oh, this person's very academic, and to me that means like more theory based and not experiential. But NLP is very experiential, so I was just like, well, as opposed to what? I'm giving you the steps of a process that you have to go and do and experience. And he was like, no, not like that. You should put your personality into your videos more. And he referenced a podcast, and I went and looked at the podcast, and it was one of those kind of like bro podcasts where it was a young man, and he's, kind of putting a little bit of arrogance out there, and no judgment on him. Like, this is what plays, this is what sells. And so I haven't responded to the person yet, but on my video. But basically, it comes down to this: I don't see myself as the brand of what I'm doing. The information that I'm getting out there is the star of the show. not me. And there have been times where I put my personal life on there. I've done vlogs and things like that, and you will see me get emotional in those. But I've never found it to be like why people are coming to my videos, and if my personality overshadows what I'm teaching, which is, you see this in like Tony Robbins, and then I feel like I'm not doing my job. I feel like the message and what I'm teaching is the most important thing, not who I am. So I don't want if I get emotional about something, I don't want that to hijack the video. I want the information I'm teaching to be the thing that people are coming for, and that they're getting it.
That makes total sense. And I guess to people that don't know that, they're just going to interpret how they're going to interpret, because we're people and we'll interpret things how we want and make up a story and go, here's what it is. But that's a great way to put it. You're stewarding it.
Yes.
You're basically just letting it come through you and kind of work through you. Do you feel like some of it is also channeled in that sort of way specifically? Or are you just saying, I've learned this information, I want to package it in the right way so you can get the information, and never mind how I feel about it?
So definitely yes to the second part, but when you say channel, what do you mean by channel?
There are certain people that channel information from a higher level, from God or from the universe or whatever, and they feel that comes through them. It's almost like how creatives or artists can say, I don't really know where that came from, but it just came out of me and it was kind of channeled through. And I've seen different people, and I've talked to different people that are like, I don't let my vessel really, or like the being, get in the way, because it's being channeled through. And it sounds like you're taking more of the conscious approach of like, the information's the information. So take the information, and me being yelly or emotional about it or whatever is not going to do you a bit of good. Here's the information. But it also sounds like that person who's like, I want you to be emotional, because they probably are,
Yeah. And, so I've had those moments because I like to do live streams. So I've had those moments where I felt like, I was just channeling. But majority of it is, I felt this my entire life. If I was struggling to solve a problem and I solved that problem, I know that there are other people who are trying to solve that problem and they're really frustrated. And I know what that frustration feels like. So I just want to go to them and say, here's the key, or here's the information you need so that you don't need to struggle with this anymore. And I feel like that's really my job. My channel started with one of the things I realized very quickly when I was going to like one NLP training after another, especially getting into more and more advanced NLP trainings that I was attending, not teaching, was how many people didn't actually know basic NLP. And it was like, okay, they're spending thousands of dollars learning all this. And it is true, like you just don't really get a lot of practice in NLP trainings, because that would make the trainings extremely long and that wouldn't be very competitive in the market. So people aren't really practicing, and then they hand you a certificate and say, now you're certified. And it's like that is completely meaningless. You have to go and practice it. And so what I was doing is I was practicing every single day on myself. I had a practice group, and I would practice it with them once a week, and had a practice partner who I practiced with once a week. And I was practicing on people and they didn't even realize it. I was just making the world my NLP classroom. So I was understanding NLP rapidly. And a lot of this, I was not getting the help of a teacher or a mentor up until I met my mentor, Steve Andreas. And so I started my YouTube channel being the whole point of it was I'm going to teach people what they should have learned in their NLP training. And actually, to this day, when I'm speaking at conferences, actually, when I'm shoulder to shoulder speaking with other people who are presenting at these conferences, they will come to me and say, when I was taking my NLP training, I didn't understand what I was learning, and I had to turn to your videos because your videos were the videos that actually taught me what I was supposed to know.
Nice.
And so I get this compliment to this day, which is a huge compliment because that's exactly what I set out to do in the beginning. The spotlight has always been the information that I'm teaching, not me.
And it sounds like with everything you're saying, you've just solidified it more and more and more. Like if they were like, it's a little dry, you would probably open up a little bit in that sort of way. But the fact that you keep getting like, this is what you set out to do and this is what it's about. That's awesome, man. And again, I think people are going to interpret how they want.
I'm happy to share, one of the reasons why I've had a lot of people come to me for coaching is they would say, I heard some of what you were saying and it didn't really speak to me, but when you talked about your depressions or you talked about your divorce and things like that. So that is something that I think it helps feed what I'm trying to do here. When I don't pretend like I'm this perfect person. I think when people are trying to really build a personality brand, that's what they're doing. And there are people who want to follow that. They want to believe that there are these sort of like higher than human, people that they can follow. And that defeats the whole point. So yeah, I
Yeah.
want people to know that I've worked through problems. I've worked through depression. I've had a divorce. I've had to deal with, trying to maintain relationships with my kids, um, and these tough times of going through a divorce and moving out of the home. So I do talk about these things because I want people to understand that I'm not just like coming from a place of like I had this all figured out from the beginning. It's like, no, what I'm giving you is problems that I've solved, things that I had to figure out for myself. And then that's how I know it works. And so now I'm giving it to you so you don't have to stay in that frustration.
Wait, so there aren't perfect people on the planet? Like there's not somebody wandering around
You would
like
be
all these people
amazed.
on social media?
Yeah, you would be amazed at how people really buy into that
Oh my
stuff.
God. Well, they want to,
Yeah,
like they really want that. And I can understand like really wanting that, but it's like self-awareness. Like once you see it, like you can't not see things.
right.
So if you're like, I want this, why would I want this? Well, and then you kind of work through your stuff. But big thing you're saying with this is context, like setting the stage, giving some context to it. Like if you just talked about all these things and you're like, yeah, I went through a divorce, but I'm totally good. And like, everything's totally fine. And like, everything's all right. For the people that are out there that would just be like, oh, cool. See, he's totally good. Like you're actually hurting those people at that point. And it's interesting because I think there's a lot of hurt that's being given out from coaches because they're not actually working through this stuff that they're working through. You told me before we even got started, like you were doing the work and kind of almost tripped into this because it made sense to do it when it made sense, instead of like where 2020 and the whole COVID thing is an easy thing to look back to, because a lot of people were like, well, what the fuck do I do now? I guess I become a coach. For what? I don't fucking know, but I guess I'll do it because I see these other people doing it and like, why the fuck not? And at that point, they're just like spewing things. I kind of tripped backwards into coaching because I went through a divorce and I had friends that were like, man, you help me. Can you help a buddy of mine who's also going through shit? Can you help somebody else? And it's like, yeah, but I need to do so much more work because the more that you learn, the more you understand, like there's more to know about it. And likewise, I'm sure with the NLP stuff, like as you started to go into it, I'm sure you got 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years into it. You're like, oh my God, there's so much that I've learned from it that you're then able to turn around. And it sounds like you've got a good, mindset in a sense of like, I'm going to help. I want to deliver the information instead of like pushing it upon people. But why don't we take a little bit of a step back? How the hell did you get here? I know a little bit of the story, but why don't you share that? Because again, context is important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I became So I had my first depression right after I graduated college, and it was 9/11 happened. It was the first time I was out of school in my entire life. Like I guess I started going to school like at 3, and now I'm like 22, and I'm out of school for the first time, and just facing that the rest of your life. Like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
So yeah, 9/11 happened, which really shook me up because you feel like you're living, and you don't even question your safety, and suddenly that like something like that happens. And then I got arrested for something really stupid, and it's really stupid to the point where it's like, I mean, if you want to get into it, I don't mind talking about it, but
I'm down.
it's not. I don't know. I don't find it that relevant. But anyway, those 3 things happened in one summer, and I just was like, I don't even feel like walking out my front door. It just feels dangerous. Like who knows what can happen. And I gradually just kind of like pulled in more and more and didn't process the negative feelings that I was experiencing. And I just suddenly I realized I'm in a really bad place, and I've actually been in this place for months now, and I don't know how to get myself out of it. And I remembered that I had a professor who taught a class called the philosophy of psychology. And he went through different therapeutic modalities, including hypnosis and Gestalt therapy, which NLP is based on. And then at the end, he pulled out NLP and he said, like, this is the mother of them all because it takes the best of everything that whatever works. And I was just amazed by what this guy could do. And I remember thinking to myself, I got to learn this NLP thing one day. So that was in college, and then I was graduated. Now I'm experiencing depression. I don't have health insurance. I'm a bartender. And so I don't even have the money to hire a therapist. So I remembered my professor, and I called him up and told him, what was going on. And he said, well, come into my office. He said, I don't believe in a free service, but I also don't need your money. So he said, donate your time every time you come to see me to charity or money or whatever. And he's like, I'm not going to check back with you. I'm just going to trust that you do it.
That's
Come back
cool.
next week and we'll get to work. I come back next week, and in one hour session, months of depression is gone. And my logical mind said, no, 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 this cannot even be possible. But every other part of me was just like, I'm free. Like, I'm not depressed anymore. And I remember leaving his office and just like, I had to stop and sit at a bench on the campus and was just like looking around. I was like, I walked in there a different person. I walked in there depressed, and I'm walking out and there is no depression. It just didn't, it seemed crazy. And so I didn't get depressed for another 10 years. And when I finally got depressed again, it had nothing to do with what I had gotten depressed with the first time. But I can say now, knowing NLP, that it was a way that I would think about things. Depression is a process, not like a thing. So I'm, 10 years later now, I'm living in Santa Cruz, California. I have an insurance agency. I'm married, and I have two really young kids, like two kids under 2 years old, and everything is going wrong. And so I slip into a depression again, and I didn't even realize it. My wife at the time, ex-wife now, she's a therapist, and she just said, "You need help." And I remember part of me was like, "Well, no, I don't." And then I just stopped and I was like, "Yeah, actually, I do. I'm not good." And so I found a therapist, and this was traditional therapy. So I went to traditional psychotherapy, and it took me an entire year to come out of depression. So we're talking one session with somebody who knew NLP versus an entire year with someone who's doing more traditional therapy. And when I started to realize, even though I was out of the depression, I was thinking maybe I can make some progress and some advances here. But no, he only knew how to this therapist only knew how to get you out of the hole. And then
Mm.
once you were there, then he kind of like kept you there by asking more and more about problems rather than trying to move you to solutions. And I was like, okay, this isn't working for me anymore. And so I stopped going to see him, but I knew if I didn't do something different, I was going to end up right back there again. And that's when I decided it's time to learn NLP. And there was a training that might still happen here in Santa Cruz where NLP was created up at the university every summer. And so I went to that training, and it just felt like I came home. I was like,
Mm.
this is what I've been looking for. And I wasn't even thinking that I was going to be a teacher or a coach at that point. I was still thinking I'm going to fix my insurance agency and I'm going to fix my marriage and everything's going to be great. And I just couldn't stop doing NLP. I would just try to get into a training every chance that I could. Like I mentioned before, I was practicing all the time. And by the time I came back a year later, about 75% of the people who were there the year before returned for what it was a master practitioner training. And they just kept coming up to me and they were like, "Why are you so much better than us?" And I was like, "I don't know." I said, so I started asking them questions and they were like, we got the same certification you did. So we should be at the same level as you. And I was like, "Did you practice? Have you practiced at all since the last training a year ago?" And they were all, "No." I was like, "It's not a secret. If you
Yeah.
don't practice, you're not going to get good at it. And that's why I'm better than you is I don't have any special talents. I just practice." And and that's when people started saying, and then when I would go to other NLP trainings, people would be like, "Well, how long have you been a coach or how long have you been a teacher?" And I was like, "I'm not, I'm an insurance agent." And they were like, "What are you doing here?" Because mostly coaches and, teachers go to these trainings. And so, yeah, by that point, after a year had passed, I was like, yes, I'm going to do coaching. I'm going to do teaching. And even still, it was more about I wanted to be better at NLP. And that was what was driving me to want to do that. So I started just teaching workshops. And when that didn't go very far, that's when I decided to get on YouTube. A friend of mine actually said, "Hey, you've been to film school. Why don't you try YouTube?" And
Yeah.
so I was like, okay, I'll give that a shot. And I did. And yeah, I realized in that whole process that my marriage was not salvageable. I was just, we hit that inroads and there was nothing that was going to make it better. And I also realized that being an insurance agent was making me absolutely miserable, and there was no changing that. So it was like, it's not. I always thought that it was something about me not being good enough, and that's why I wasn't succeeding at the insurance business. But it was like, no, it's just not a good fit. The crazy thing about it, once I realized that, and I realized that it was just going to use the business to keep me afloat until I transferred into this other business, I actually was able to make it successful at that point. It was really strange. It's like when, this thing you're trying so hard to do and then you finally say, "Fuck it, I don't care anymore."
Yeah.
Then it was easy. And then it was like, I want to say it's easy, but it was working a lot better. And so I was just basically, I moved my office in with another agent. I said, "Can you babysit this while I transition out of this?" And he said, "Yeah, absolutely." And so took me a few years to kind of figure out this new business. But once I did, I jumped and haven't looked back since.
I love all that. And especially the real side of it. Like I joked, like, yeah, you were an overnight success. It took 9 years. Like the amount of stuff that people see that they think like, oh, this is whatever they make it up to be in their own heads. And the fact that you were doing the work, I mean, there are little principles that are through all of this stuff where it's like, you did it in the sense that you just wanted to learn it. And you even said to me that it was your calling. When we feel that and we go in that direction, things will start to get easier, even if it's the other stuff of like, oh, I need to get this away. And I don't know the answer to this question, but is it safe to assume that you're living a better life and more happy life than you did when you had the agency, when you were married, at least to her, and like where things are now? Is it better?
100 times over. Like, especially thinking back during the times that I was depressed, and I was just like, I guess this is just kind of how life is going to be for the rest of it. And that was depressing to even think about. And that's what I like to tell people, because when I come across someone who's either depressed or like kind of close to that, I want to be respectful. You don't want to just say, oh, your life is so much better than like that'll make it worse. But what I do want to communicate to them is like it will get better. It can get better if you're adamant about being a happy and fulfilled person. And you're willing to work for it, you will get there. This is not how you're not stuck. This is not how the rest of your life has to be. Because like at this point, it's like it has exceeded, the fulfillment I experience now has exceeded what I thought was even possible. And still it's getting more and more fulfilling. So my take on it now is just like, well, how good can this get? How deep can I take this? And it's not like a greedy thing. It's more of like a potential thing. What potential do I have to be even more fulfilled and more engaged in life? And I'm curious to see how far I can take that.
What a cool aspect of it. Like, well, fuck, let's see what happens. And like, cool, let's see how far we can go. And I think to call something out here too, for the people that are listening, this isn't, Damon's not saying like, well, I was in a shitty spot, I learned this thing and everything worked better. Like that's just not how life works. Like the amount of work that you had to put in, that wasn't just like curriculum work, but also work on your own. Like if you actually sat back and thought about the amount of hours that you spent just even pondering on it, thinking about it, looking at other people, how they relate to life and what they do, like you literally enveloped yourself in it instead of saying, well, I really want that. And the reason why I say that is there are people that I hear from at times that are like, man, I've tried therapy. I've tried this. I've tried that. It's like, great. So what's next? Like if that didn't work, or if that was a piece of it, like talk therapy, everybody will go into talk therapy and they're like, this was great and it led me in some direction, or it was bullshit and I just yammered to somebody about my problems and they would ask me, how does that make you feel or whatever. It's like, that's a part of all of this, but not just the end thing. I think a lot of people they just want that, like, what's the pill that I can swallow and like push all this stuff away, instead of trying to break down one barrier to break down another, to break down another. Like they're visuals in my head at times where I'll climb a mountain only to get to the top of it and go, what the fuck is that? Jeez, it's another. All right, cool. And you get to a point where you keep trucking along with it. So let's talk about some of the really tough times where obviously going through a divorce can be a tough time. And from somebody who's divorced, it's one of those things like congratulations, or I'm sorry, or a mixture of both, but that can be one of those things that really shapes you in a beautiful way. Like I used to tell people, I didn't get a divorce to die. I got a divorce so I could live and actually change things. And like, I look at life now and think, oh my God, how did I have that same sort of question that you did of like, well, is this it? I guess this is it. So I guess it's just what life is going to be like. And it doesn't have to be that way, but there were still dark times that you went through.
For sure.
So are there any that come to mind that you were like, man, that was one of those like super pivotal moments. Like I went through that within my NLP journey and that changed how things shifted.
When I got a divorce, I was dating for the first time in 15 years and in my late 30s. That was scary. Things had changed quite a bit. Now there was like online dating and I tried that and that didn't go so well because on these apps, it's like 70% men and 30% women. So the odds are really stacked against you. So I also had my own business, so I wasn't going to date my employees nor my insurance clients. And so I started realizing that I needed, if I saw an attractive woman, I was going to have to go and just talk to her, and that was really difficult to do. And I also wanted that choice because I kept slipping into relationships, even some of the rebound relationships that I went through, kept slipping into relationships where the women would turn out to be very passive aggressive and playing a lot of games and really trying to control and manipulate me. And I remember coming to like a choice point thinking, wait, is this all women? Are all women like this? Or is this just the women I'm attracting? And so I had to be really like honest with myself. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this on. This is my responsibility. I know that there are good women out there. And so there's something I'm doing that's attracting this type of woman. And I want to figure out what that is. And so I just decided I was going to just date and date and date for an entire year. And at the end of that year, if I found someone, then I was going to settle down with them. And I did find someone, and it was coming up to that year. And then the red flag went up, and I saw she was doing the same thing. And I was like, oh man, I spent a year doing this and I almost missed it again. Almost got slipped into this relationship with this person who was basically it was going to be a rerun of all of my other relationships. And so I was like, I need another year. And so I went another year and I dated a lot. I could catch these red flags very quickly. And I started realizing that I was putting a certain kind of vulnerability out too early. And certain women, it was attracting certain women because they thought that they could control me. But once I made it clear that I understood what they were doing, because the last thing a passive aggressive person wants is to be called out. That's why it's passive aggressive, right?
Yeah.
So I would start calling out what they were doing. They would disappear very quickly. And then I started to develop myself along that way and started attracting much better women. But I do remember like I was getting to the end of like, I was getting into the third year and I was like, I'm not really finding anyone. And it was just, I was really getting a bit cynical about it. And I just thought, well, maybe I'm not going to find someone to share the rest of my life with. And so I quit dating for 6 months. Like I quit approaching, quit dating. And I was just like, I really need to focus on my business because that was something that was lacking as well. And I had another big failure in that I was able to overcome. But I was like, less dating, more attention on my business. And that started to work out well for me. And 6 months later, I had like zero social life. I hadn't been on a date in, 6 months. And I was like, okay, I was just finishing up this online training that I had created. And I was like, I really need to get out. I need some sunlight. I need some fresh air and I need to see people. And I'm walking down the street downtown here in Santa Cruz, and I just see this really attractive, really young woman. And I was trying to talk myself out of talking to her, but I was like, actually, no, I'm going to go do this. And I just walked up to her and told her I thought, she was really cute and that I wanted to know her name and possibly go out on a date with her. Now I'm married to her. And you think about those times where, you almost didn't do something, but you did, and then how that changes the trajectory of your life. And then that opened a whole new can of worms because she's from a different country and we got separated by COVID. And she also got her visa taken away. And we eloped in Istanbul, Turkey. The media picked it up. And so it was broadcast live in Turkey, our wedding. And then we still couldn't be together. And so it went on for 2 more years where the only way we could be together is if I traveled to Romania or we traveled to a country where we could both enter. It was, that was another dark time, but with a light at the end of the tunnel. And, but yeah, I threw a lot in there all at once. And I also, another dark time was a time that the business that I have now had a major failure. And I just thought that was the end of it. All this work that I had done on YouTube for, a year of doing videos. I did a video every single day for 8 months straight. And that was a lot of work. And that's how I started to build my following. And then I put out my first training after doing YouTube, and it just was a spectacular failure. And I thought, that's the end of it, all this work that I had done. And 6 weeks I didn't publish a single video for 6 weeks. And then suddenly I started getting all these emails and these messages. Hey, we haven't seen you put a video out in a while. We're worried about you. Are you sick? Are you dead? Let us know you're okay. And I was like, you wouldn't come to my fucking training and you just want me to keep putting free videos out there? Is that what this is about? So I was a little resentful, but then I started making videos again. And then I realized what that was all about. It was, I was promoting a live in-person workshop for a different trainer. And it was like, my following didn't know who he was and didn't want to see him and didn't want to show up to a live workshop. They found me on a screen, they wanted me, and they wanted me on a screen. And that's when I realized that they wanted digital products, digital trainings. And so I didn't know that at the time, but I just thought nobody really wants to know what I have to say, and that's the end of it, and it's time to go move on to a different business. It was quite a relief when I realized the mistakes that I'd made, and that actually people did want what I was offering. It was an interesting learning curve and very frustrating at the time, but it all ended up being really good.
So in what was that, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, maybe you just chunked all this stuff in? I laugh at times because I think it's funny how we can look in like history books and they're like, from this period to this period to like 600 years, these 3 things happened. Like, what the fuck do you mean? Like, there were so many other things that happened. Mm-hmm. You had all these dark times, even the 6 weeks off. I'm sure you still had the body feeling of like, well, I got to sit down. I got to do the video. Wait a minute. And then people coming back be like, are you all right? Are you dead? And be like, what the fuck do you mean? Where have you been?
No, and it was so cliche. Like whenever that failure happened, I had trouble getting out of bed. I stayed in my pajamas most of the day. All the blinds were closed. They had very little light in my apartment, and it's like, because it was so weird. Like, I look back on it now, but it was like that's what you would see in a movie, because you have to like show what's going on inside the character by lighting it the right way and all that. And it was like, that's what I was actually living through, and I didn't even realize it at the time. But it was like, yeah, it was a dark time, and it was literally dark in my home. Yeah. And that's the way that it all felt. And finally, I remember just kind of emerging from that, and it was almost like opening the blinds and letting the sunlight in. And it was like, you know what?
Bird singing.
Yeah. And it was just like, you know what? I'm a teacher. This is what I do. So I'm going to put that camera back up and start teaching again. And then eventually, shortly thereafter, it led to one of the biggest successes that I had, that's still creating a training that I'm still selling to this day, because I put so much effort into it. And but if it hadn't been for that failure, I would have never discovered that. And so it's how these things often work.
It's how life works. Like, you have to fail through things. You have to fuck around and find out. You also have to bash your head into the wrong wall sometimes, to go, well, shit, that's the wrong direction. Let me go back. And you still can learn things from it. From an intellectual perspective, like, yes, I get that you need to fail. You need to do this to do that. But then when people get into it, it can be really hurtful in a way that isn't just to the timing that they're in, but there's so many other things that they haven't worked through or processed through, that it feels like they're just stacking it on. Like, oh, and now this, and now that, and oh my God, and now my shoes, and now this. It's like, oh, you're just adding things to it. But it can be really easy to do that when you're in that dark spot. Now, obviously, you've been through these different things. You've fucked around, found out, but you've also learned through all this stuff. And I joke with the like, well, here was this short little thing, like how they even do it in movies. Like, all this chaos and craziness happened, and like 15 minutes later, it's like, no, there was a lot of dark times, but there's still that momentum and that movement. Even if you're slowing down and you're resting, you're still moving in that direction. So the fact that you just didn't give up, like, let's be real, man. You had a lot of different times. You could have just totally checked out. You could have been like, no, this is too much. I'm not doing it. And now, like, have you thought about that? Like, what if you checked out? Like, you wouldn't be where you're at. You wouldn't be doing what you're doing. No. Maybe you're selling insurance again and like, fuck this. I can't.
When I had that major failure, that's what I thought. I was like, okay, do I have to go back into insurance? And I was seriously considering that. And oh man, it was so painful to just even think about that. And what I see with a lot of people, the real difference between people who are living the life that they want to live and really fulfilled by that and experiencing the kind of freedom they want, is they stuck with what they were doing, even if that like evolved, because you try things, they fail, you keep trying new things. And so it evolves, but you're still sticking with it. And what I would say is, the really important thing is not to be so fixated on how you're going to get there, because if I had actually gotten what I wanted the way that I thought I wanted it, it would have been a lot more restrictive. I would have been having to show up, just to keep my money going. I'd have to actually physically show up in many different places and be teaching constantly, which is, that's what my teachers were doing. So I thought, well, that's how it's done. But they hadn't really tapped into the internet and YouTube and all that. So now I get the choice if I want to do that. I don't have to like do that all the time. So I learned enough about, business and everything to make it work the way that I make it work now. But that only came because the way that I thought I was going to do it failed miserably. So I had
Mm.
to find a new way. When I think about, like, I had this weird experience earlier this year. So my wife and my wife's Romanian and we have a home in Romania. So we always go there in January. And then we went to Cambodia and then we went to Vietnam. And I remember just like it really hitting me how much I was driven by freedom. And this is another thing that I think is really important to understand is when you focus on values, then you're not so focused on how you think it has to happen. You become more flexible and you know what the values are that you're after. And for a long time, freedom was such an important thing to me. And I remember earlier this year being in Vietnam and just being like, okay, more freedom is not going to make me happier. More freedom is not going to make me more fulfilled. I have really hit that level of freedom that was far more than I expected to ever achieve. I can travel anywhere, go anywhere because I can run my business off of a laptop, and I also have a great team of people who I work with. Who I don't have to do everything. They're there for that as well. So I have the money I need, and I have all the freedom to travel and do whatever. And that was both a victory in that moment that I realized that, but it was also like, okay, so where do I go from here? Like, and it was like a real question for me to sort of contemplate. And that's that might sound a little arrogant, like you achieve all that you want, and then you're kind of like, okay, well, what do I do now? Like that's a first world problem that most people would want to have that don't even get to that point to have. But it's be prepared for that. Like if you really believe you're going to be successful and you're not going to stop until you become successful, be prepared for those moments that you have where you go, wow, okay, I really have it now. What now? And so I thought about all these different things that I could do from that point on. And I was like, well, wait a minute. It's not about doing something different. I'm so happy with what I'm doing now. I don't need to do anything different. I just want to do more of what I'm already doing.
Yeah.
And I don't need more freedom to do that. And it was a realization of I don't need to be pursuing freedom so hard anymore, because more of it actually can, at this point in my life, would probably be more nihilistic or more escapism, and it's like, that's not
Hmm.
worth that either, because that's not going to fulfill me more. So it was an interesting realization to come to that. And it's like, yeah, okay, freedom doesn't have to be the main thing here anymore.
Well, I think we're also taught in this world with all the systems we have that you have to have a destination. Like think about even being like in high school and they're like, well, you need a 5 or you need a 10-year plan. That was
Mhm.
always so difficult. Like I
Mhm.
remember somebody even years ago was like, well, what's your 5 or 10-year plan from now? I was like, fuck if I know. Because anything I come up with is going to be like half-hearted and like what I kind of want right now. But as you move through things and you do things, you start to see, well, I really want this. I want that. Like freedom is a big thing. I think a lot of people want freedom.
Mhm.
I love the freedom that I have. I'm right there with you, where it's like one of those things where you go, well, cool, I have it. Well, that's cool. But like what's really fulfilling inside is the thing that actually
Mhm.
just drives us and pulls us from basically our chest. So for the people that are on their path towards self mastery, and with everything you've gone through, and especially with NLP, what's your advice for those folks?
Keep your attention on what's most important, and what's most important is your values. A value is a generalization about an experience that is important to you. So if happiness is important to you, success is important to you, authenticity is important to you, always keep your eyes on that. And then any goals you set need to be aligned with those values. Most of the time, people have no idea what their values are in a particular context, and they will be different from context to context. And they just set a goal because they think, okay, like you said, you have to have a destination, right? So here, I'm going to set this goal, but they don't really understand what's driving the motivation to have that goal. And a lot of times, it's more external values. Well, other people value achieving this, so it must be valuable. Or if I achieve it, then these people will think very highly of me and respect me. Those are if you're accomplishing something that does those things, there's nothing wrong with that. But if that's why you're doing it, you're probably not going to be fulfilled by accomplishing that. And so a lot of people are chasing goals that are not even fulfilling to them. And whenever they fail at that, because really there's that inner wisdom that is holding them back, like the inner wisdom that held me back from succeeding as an insurance agent, because that would have been the golden handcuffs. So it would have been really hard to walk away from a very successful business with a lot of money. And I would have probably tolerated that misery. So you want to be careful, like when you quit at something because you run out of motivation for it, check in with that. Is that a deeper wisdom that knows better, that that's not really going to fulfill you? But what most people do is they beat themselves up and they say, I should have had more discipline, or I should have had more willpower. I'm just not good enough. And they go into this whole self-worth thing, which is not real, by the way. It's something that holds a lot of people back. And then the people who do succeed at it, and they get there and they go, wow, this isn't, fulfilling. This feels rather empty. I thought it would be great if when I finally achieve this. But again, it wasn't aligned with their values. So no, it's not going to be fulfilling. And because they feel lost without a goal, they set another goal and get back on that treadmill, and they do the whole thing over and over again. And people come to me for coaching now who are very, very successful. On paper, you would think they would be extremely happy and fulfilled. They have all the money, they have the family, they have the cars, the house, and everything. And they're coming to me because they feel like imposters, or they're coming to me because they feel so unfulfilled and they can't understand it, because they've accomplished everything they've ever wanted to accomplish, yet they feel so empty inside. And it's like, yeah, you're good at accomplishing. The problem was you never really got in touch with what do you truly value, what is really important to you. And so that's the most important thing, is what's most important to you. And the better you understand that, the more clarity you have around that, the more you're naturally going to be drawn to that and motivated to do that. The other thing I would say is there is no such thing as self-worth. How this problem comes up is feeling like you're not good enough, feeling like you deserve it or don't deserve it. It goes both ways. And so what most people are feeling is a low sense of self-worth. And they feel like if I go and try to achieve something and I fail at it, I will lower my self-worth, and I'm already clinging to what little I have. So most of the time people won't do something and they'll sit back and say, oh, well, I'm waiting for the right opportunity. And what they're waiting is to feel of higher self-worth, so that they feel like they can go do something. And if they lose some self-worth, they'll still be okay. Well, here's the thing. There is no such thing as self-worth. There is no way to measure your value, which is what worth is. It's really a metaphor. And there's a lot of problems that happen when we try to apply metaphors literally. And we see this in the Bible. Fundamentalists are people who are trying to apply metaphors in the Bible literally, and it causes a lot of problems. So what people do is they have this idea of self-worth. And so they think, well, how do I measure my worth? Well, first of all, there's no way to do it. There's no objective scale or person who can be objective and measure people's worth. So what do? We compare ourselves to others, and that will destroy you every time. If you compare yourself to others to make yourself feel better about yourself because you think they're less than you, now you're engaging in this superiority. That's going to bring you down. And if you play that game, you can't only play it in one direction. When you encounter someone you think is of higher worth than you, now you're going to feel bad about yourself. The whole thing, you can kill the whole thing just by stop comparing yourself to others. Now, this idea of self-worth, it usually comes about very early in life, and we just pile more and more beliefs on top of that whole idea. So the two things that I would recommend is get clear and clear about your values, basically what's important to you. What does that actually look like to you? And you're not going to have it all figured out. And you're definitely not going to figure it out all out on paper. You need to take action. And action is the best way to get that clarity experience. And then the other thing is to dismantle the whole concept of self-worth entirely. And when you do that, when you do those two things together, you're just on the path to living a very fulfilling life, a life of being who you want to be, and therefore creating the life you want to live.
That's awesome. And I think a lot of people can anchor into like the understanding of action and motivation too. Like you have to take action to be motivated, continue to do the thing. It's likewise with what you're saying, where you have to take those actions, but you have to understand why you're doing those things. And it is interesting how a lot of people don't know what their principles are, or they are somebody else's principles. Mm-hmm. Like, well, my wife and I, or my partner and I, or my family and I, we have these principles. Like, well, where did those come from? Well, they just kind of came up, and like, we don't really think about that, or don't think about it throughout their day-to-day life of like, well, how do I move about this? And why do I want to do such a thing? I'm really glad that you touched on those two things, man. It's been great having you on. So I appreciate your time. Before I let you go, where can people find you and where can they connect with you?
Yeah, the easiest place is my YouTube channel. It's just Damon Cart. Damon Cart NLP, and I've got a lot of videos. Been doing this for quite a while, almost 10 years. So that's you'll find not only my videos, but in my videos I give a lot of free resources so that you can get started. Usually on the topic that I'm giving you, or the solution to a problem. You can access like free PDFs and things like that. And so also I have my website is selfconcept.com. Like I said, I do general NLP, but I also really focus on this one model, because your beliefs about yourself determine your beliefs about everything else, the world around you. And if you haven't realized already, it's your beliefs that govern your reality. So what you believe is possible, what you believe is true. Also, most of our beliefs are deeply unconscious. So when you can understand what the beliefs are, especially the deeply unconscious ones about who you are, when you understand what those are, you understand their limitations, and then you transform them so they don't have those limitations. Then you become that person you value. Your self-esteem goes up, your confidence goes up, and you naturally gravitate toward creating that life that you want to live, that's reflective of the value that you are.
So wait, are you putting worth to that? No, I'm just kidding.
No, it's different. Worth is a measurement.
Only kidding. Awesome, man. Well, again, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me on.